Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on Hurricane Milton. Milton continues to be a powerful hurricane out here in the Gulf this morning. So we're going to go over all the latest info that we have. We'll talk about what's going on with this system right now, the latest from the National Hurricane Center. We'll kind of zoom into that cone for you folks. The hurricane hunters are in this system right now. So we're going to try to catch the latest information on the fly while doing this video. You know, we did the video yesterday morning. It was a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane, and then 4 hours later, it was a Category 5 hurricane. So things change quick. Just want to reiterate that, but you know, we're going to give you the latest info that we have as of around 7 o'clock Eastern time this morning. So we'll go over all that. We'll go over all the model guidance that we got. We'll compare all of that, and then we'll talk about impacts. We'll talk about storm surge, we'll speak on rainfall, and we'll get very detailed on comparing model guidance with how fast these winds are going to be, and that all depends on where the center of the system makes landfall. So we'll compare a lot of model guidance with that. After we get done doing all that, we will speak on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Tuesday. Timestamps are up throughout the entire video, guys. I know my videos are very long. If you're a first-time viewer, like, dude, you're speaking way too long about the weather. I get it. Not everybody has 45 minutes to listen to a guy talk about the weather, but timestamps are up. I'm just telling you, you can jump ahead to certain portions of the video. It doesn't bother me one bit. Put a fast forward to, put it on ×2 speed, whatever you got to do. I don't expect everybody to watch these entire videos, but definitely take advantage of the timestamps, get the information you need or that you want. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments so I can do it and so others can pray over it also. So let's get going here. So this is Hurricane Milton right here in the middle of your screen. Obviously, this thing is very strong still, but it has weakened since last night. Last night was a 185-mile-per-hour Category 5 hurricane, high-end Category 5 hurricane. And it's still very healthy. As of right this second, it's a 155-mile-per-hour high-end Category 4 hurricane. But like I said, hurricane hunters are in this right now, and it is forecasted right at this second to get bumped up back to a Category 5 hurricane sometime today. And it might happen by the time we get to the end of this video. But still a very healthy hurricane, bringing impacts to the northern shoreline of the Yucatan Peninsula. And it's starting to pick up some speed as it heads towards the west coast of Florida. The big question is, how much does this weaken before making landfall? We are hoping it weakens significantly. So this is the system right now popping off those cold cloud tops indicated here in the white and the pink, which tells us these updrafts are very high up in the atmosphere. The higher up you get, the colder it gets, which is indicated by these colder cloud tops here. But if you notice, this is the eye. It's starting to warm somewhat. It's starting to dry out, which tells me that this might be strengthening a little bit right now. So this is it right now. Still a very healthy outflow, so a very healthy hurricane. So we take a look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. This is Zoom Earth. This is the exact National Hurricane Center cone, so this isn't just some regular random site. This compares data here and kind of overlaps it, if you will. It's like Google Maps with the tropics. Pretty cool thing to use, but it's a 155-mile-per-hour hurricane right at this second. Makes it a high-end Category 4. They are forecasting this to strengthen and back into a Category 5. It might do it sometime this morning. Very well might. Forecast to strengthen to a 160-mile-per-hour Category 5 hurricane by this afternoon, and then weaken again sometime tonight. And then by the time we get into 2 p.m. Wednesday, still a powerful, forecasted to be a powerful Category 4 145-mile-per-hour hurricane. Okay, how much does this weaken from Wednesday afternoon to the middle of the night, Wednesday night into Thursday morning? It's saying it's going to weaken considerably. So right now, they got the center of this cone right here in the southern edge of Tampa Bay, really close to Bradenton. Okay, but this would bring widespread impacts to all the communities around Tampa. I mean, St. Petersburg, Palm Harbor, Clearwater, Sarasota, Venice. Obviously, if the center of the storm does come a little bit further south, this would bring probably more impacts to Sarasota, to the Venice area, to the Bradenton area. So where does that onshore flow set up? It's a big question. Don't want to get too deep into that right this second. But remember, the center of the storm still could go up here. The cone is starting to shrink, though. The bend of Florida is no longer in the cone. Okay, southwest Florida, way down here, no longer in the cone. That doesn't mean you're not going to see impacts. This is not an impact cone. This is where the center of the storm could go. And this thing could still have a retained eye wall as it moves inland and impacts all the higher populated areas of central Florida. So this is the latest cone. Of course, it's going to weaken once it gets off the east coast of Florida back into a hurricane, then a post-tropical storm, extratropical system. It'll just lose its tropical characteristics, basically. So that's the latest cone. More of the traditional look that you guys are probably more used to seeing. M stands for major, H stands for hurricane, S for tropical storm, and of course you see all the alerts across Florida right now. And just taking a closer look at these alerts and see if we have any updated information. We do not, so it's the same. We got hurricane warnings up here in the bright red color, that darker red color right here. That is tropical storm warnings. That lighter shade of red or pink right in here, those are tropical storm watches, which by the way, extend all the way up into Charleston and just north of Charleston. Savannah, Hilton Head, Tybee Island, etc. Jacksonville has hurricane watches right now. This is hurricane watches here in this pink color. Okay, I just want to make sure, yeah, this is the updated info. Sometimes pivotal weather lags a little bit. You do have tropical storm watches down in Miami. So, pretty wild stuff. Orlando, Lakeland, you got hurricane warnings. Ocala, hurricane warnings. Okay, I think so. Yeah, Gainesville, it looks like you guys are in the tropical storm warning from what I can tell with counties. I might be wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't pretend to know the name of every single county, but I do know where these cities are pretty much kind of positioned here. So, yeah, Ocala's definitely got a hurricane warning. It looks like Gainesville is more so in the tropical storm watcher warning right here. So, Florida Keys have tropical storm warnings right now. Okay. So, right at this second, and like I said, hurricane hunters are in this right at this moment. Okay. But the latest info that we have is that this is the millibar, which was what? And I think at the lowest it was an 897 last night. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, it's risen back to a 924. So obviously, this is weakened. At once, it was a 185 mile per hour storm. Now it's a 155 mile per hour storm. And this is kind of a combination between this going through an eye wall replacement cycle and I think a little bit of an interaction with land with the northern sections of the Yucatan Peninsula. When these have an eye wall replacement cycle, and I'll kind of go back to this, it means the inner eye wall collapses and the outer eye wall becomes the new inner eye wall. This causes the storm to expand, but it also weakens the core of the system. So if you do notice from looking at this last night, the system is broader now. It's larger. It's not huge, but it's certainly bigger than last night. Okay. So the latest model guidance that we have as far as these hurricane models, and the only thing we can look at, guys, is let's see if the 06Z is running right now. It is, but yeah, it's just starting, so we can't look at that. But it's not going to change a whole lot of what we're going to discuss here. And we're going to kind of work through this a little bit quicker than we have been, but it's initializing this as a 907 millibar low, so a little bit too strong. As we make our way into Wednesday morning, says this is still a powerful Category 4 hurricane by Wednesday morning, 928. The structure of it still looks well put together, but I want you to watch the structure of this hurricane, how it kind of falls apart. So then we get into Wednesday evening, still looks very healthy. West coast of Florida getting lashed with these outer bands of Milton. You're going to have a tornado threat with this. Still a very strong hurricane, but the pressure has risen, which means the system has ultimately weakened, but it's starting to broaden also, starting to get larger. The wind field's starting to expand outward. Okay, now we keep going. See how the millibar is starting to rise even more? And look how the structure of the storm really falls apart right at landfall. And the H-Wharf model has this making landfall more so closer to daybreak Thursday morning rather than the middle of the night. And it still is north of Tampa. Now, the 06Z models might come and be further south. But, for right now, the hurricane models, especially this one, is north of Tampa. This will come and make landfall, say, and if you see me looking down at any time, it's because I'm looking at my phone, looking at Google Maps here, kind of coming to like the Crystal River area and just up Highway 19, okay? And then the northern section of this would be, pretty bad. I think that the northern side of the system is probably going to have the most juice with it, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get winds on the southern side. So this would still bring that onshore flow right into Tampa Bay. Okay, because this thing is spinning like this, right? So you're going to get a lot of water pushed into Tampa Bay. But if this was to happen, the worst of this would be north of Tampa, most likely. But look how this core comes onshore. And this is really on the northern edge of the cone from the National Hurricane Center. This will bring a lot of impacts to Gainesville, and even, significant impacts from Gainesville up to Jacksonville, and even some impacts in the southeast Georgia. But, at worst, I think tropical storm force conditions in southeast Georgia, I don't think it's a huge deal. And then that moves off shore. Now we look at the HMON model. We wake up Wednesday morning, still a powerful Category 4, even 5 hurricane based off the HMON model. We take it to Wednesday evening, still off the west coast. Remember, once upon a time, we were thinking that maybe this makes landfall sometime Wednesday afternoon. The time frame has really slowed down and really backed up a little bit, if you will. But the HMON model says, hey, this is still a powerful 936 millibar hurricane, Category 3 or 4 storm. But you see the structure starting to fall apart. Okay, southern edge of the storm doesn't have those bright orange and reds and pinks and stuff. That is because, if you're wondering why this keeps showing up in model guides, I really geek out about that over the last few videos. But dry air, shear, hits the western side of the system, and then it allows for dry air to get wrapped into the cyclonic flow of the system. And of course, it gets wrapped into the southern side first. So that's why it looks like the southern side, south of the low, is kind of void of the colors, which is convection, shower, and storm activity. But this would make landfall right in the middle of the night, like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And this would move onshore, the actual center of low pressure, right around like Hudson, right over the Spring Hill area. But this would bring more impacts compared to the last model I just showed you into Tampa. Center of the storm right here. So not the color we want to use. So of course the system is rotating like this. This would bring the winds right into the Tampa Bay area, which means it's pushing all that ocean water, storm surge, into the Tampa area, flooding all those little river outlet inlet areas and just anybody up against the water. That's why you're forecasting such significant storm surge, which we'll talk about with our forecasting here in a second. But yeah, that would be a huge deal. These are all tornadic bands that you got to watch out for. Okay, we all know that there's a dirty side to these hurricanes, and I haven't really dove deep into the tornado threat yet, and I think I'll do that more so tonight. But this makes landfall north of the Tampa area and surrounding communities, brings impacts to the Gainesville, Ocala, Jacksonville, even southeast Georgia, would bring impacts even to the St. Augustine area, Daytona Beach. I mean, maybe the core of the system moves right overhead, and then this moves off the coastline. What about the HFA model? The HFA and B model are worst case scenarios for Florida, just in general. So you keep this going. We take it all the way to Wednesday morning, still a powerful Category 5 hurricane, if this is correct. Starts to weaken, but it doesn't weaken fast enough, and it brings this right into St. Petersburg and Clearwater. I mean, the center of the storm. This is a worst case scenario. Okay, the worst of these winds are tucked in right against the low, so this would slam the Tampa Bay area with awful catastrophic storm surge. Of course, whoever's getting hit by the eye wall, the most intense portion of the eye wall, which would be north of the low most likely and northwest, would be getting slammed. But this would bring an offshore flow into Palm Harbor, heck, maybe even Clearwater. Remember, the winds are really tucked up around this low. So, onshore flow, offshore flow might confuse the heck out of people, but it's very important. Very, very important. I think regardless, as the storm's approaching the west coast of Florida, everybody's going to get water pressed up against the entire west coast of Florida. Doesn't matter. But things change fast when the core of the system moves in. Okay? So you keep going. This makes landfall right into Tampa. I mean, the eye of the storm goes right over Tampa based off this model. And this moves in a little bit quicker too, like more so before midnight Wednesday night. Okay? So moves in, and of course this will bring more impacts a little bit further south. Ocala would get more impacts from this, and along Interstate 4, maybe Lakeland, and maybe a little bit more impacts towards like Orlando. And I'm not saying you guys aren't going to get impacts further south, like other areas in southern Florida, but as far as the more heavier convection action, it's definitely going to be on the northern side of the system. I mean, it's been showing that for days, and you might as well stick with that. Okay, the HFB model, I mean, it is saying this is a full-fledged Category 5 hurricane still Wednesday morning. And I'm telling you, I said this in yesterday evening's video. If this thing is still a Category 5 hurricane, if it is a Category 5 hurricane, and wake up tomorrow morning, this is not good for Florida. It already isn't good, but this is definitely not good. So we keep this going. I mean, we get into Wednesday afternoon. This thing is still just a full-fledged Category 4 hurricane based off the millibar, and it makes landfall maybe a hair north of the HFA model, right into the St. Petersburg area, and would bring catastrophic storm surge right up into Tampa Bay. I've said this all along. You don't want this to make landfall just north of Tampa Bay, like just right, along the Highway 19 area, that surges through the Clearwater area in the St. Petersburg area. You do not want this to make landfall here. That would bring the worst storm surge into Tampa Bay. So worst case scenario here. I mean, and we cannot rule out, and we can't forget about Palm Harbor up in the Spring Hill, all the small communities here. If this makes landfall, then you're going to get hit by what I think is going to be a pretty significant northern eye wall if something like this plays out. You see all this red here. This is, the potential for 90, 100, 110 mile per hour wind gust. Okay, and then this moves over the area. And I'm not deliberately trying to leave you guys out in eastern Florida. Of course, the focus, quite obviously, is Tampa and the west coast of Florida. But listen, Jacksonville down to St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, down to Melbourne. I think that little corridor as far as northeast Florida could get hit very hard by hurricane force conditions. Of course, this will weaken dramatically once it moves in, and that mixed with the fact that it's dealing with dry air, but still big time impacts from that. Now we look at the GFS, folks, and we get this closer, and we're really just looking at global model guidance based off the track. What the weird thing about global models here is it's not significantly weakening the system, but you got to keep in mind though that the GFS and the global models, Euro, things like that, have the strength of the storm completely wrong currently, and have had the strength of the storm, in real time wrong for a few days now. But it really, I can tell you one thing. The global models have been stuck on this going right into Tampa. For example, it has the center of this low going right through Tampa Bay, 2 o'clock in the morning. It follows the lead of the National Hurricane Center and vice versa. Has the center of this low going right into Tampa Bay. Okay. So worst case, catastrophic scenario here. And like I said, it doesn't really significantly weaken the system like some of the hurricane models. So that's why I want to show it, because I think it's worth showing more so because of track. But I do think it's interesting. It doesn't significantly weaken the system. Now, what about the Euro? Euro, same thing, folks. It goes the exact same track as the GFS and takes this thing literally right through Tampa Bay. It's a little bit weaker, but right through Tampa Bay. Then, just the global models are just further south. And it's almost like to me, what it looks like to me is the National Hurricane Center is following more so the global model guidance as far as that track. Okay, a lot of the hurricane models a little bit further north of Tampa. Global models right through Tampa. And what's wild to me is they have the center of the cone actually south of all model guidance. So just a little bit, just a hair. But that makes a huge difference, okay? Let's talk about rain really fast. They have actually bumped up the risk of excessive rainfall to a high risk. So this is a big deal, folks. So this right here tells me they think the northern eye wall of the system is going to go north of Tampa, because you see the heaviest rain, that's 12 to 16 inches of rain is possible just north of Tampa, like for up the Spring Hill. I mean, in this corridor, like north of Orlando, right through Ocala, Gainesville, could get 8 to 12 inches of rain. A little bit of an enhancement between, say, Daytona, like right on Daytona Beach. Okay, could get 12 inches of rain, folks. Not as much to the south. And this is because of what the hurricane models are showing. The southern edge of the convection on the system is going to get depleted because of dry air. So that's why you don't have near as much rain forecasted to the south. This is going to be a northerly, heavily weighted storm system. Okay, and taking a look at the risk of excessive rainfall. Tampa to Orlando points north, Ocala, Spring Hill. Up to Gainesville, almost not quite that far north, but lot of communities here. High risk of flash flooding between now and the next 3 days. That means you have a 70% chance in that pink area, pinkish purple area, to see flash flooding. In the red, a 40% chance. Okay, let's talk about winds. We're going to spend some time on this. It's the latest GFS, right? The latest GFS model run, remember, it takes the center of the storm right through Tampa Bay. So it wants to bring, and this is wind gust, it wants to bring, and this is the crazy thing. We're going to show you all this, and then hang with me here. We're going to show you the forecast from the actual National Hurricane Center. But the GFS wants to bring 95 to as high end as 110 mile per hour wind gust around the Tampa area, points south. It even, has around Sarasota, Venice, 104 to 108 mile per hour wind gusts. It could be much higher than that. But look at these high wind gusts even north of this. And just to kind of get a closer look, and just look at the winds across central Florida. And let's see if it'll actually let's look at cities here. I got to remember I can do this. I keep forgetting Tampa. Closer look. Look at these wind gusts right into this area. I mean, very strong winds. 90, 100, 110 mile per hour wind gusts, folks. And I will take a larger look because I know I got people tuning in from Georgia wondering too. And just a wider look at things. We're definitely going to get some gusty winds, a stout northeast flow into Georgia, South Carolina, but just some 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. So this is going to, there's already a bunch of loose limbs from trees that didn't fall in Georgia and South Carolina. I would just be careful out and about here in the next few days. Don't let any limbs fall on you, things like that. Okay, as crazy as that sounds, it happens. What about the European model? Euro has this very strong, and then just taking this kind of a broad look at things. Once again, 20, 30, maybe even 40 mile per hour wind gusts in the southeast Georgia. Not a huge deal between now and Friday morning. But let's go on and just dive deeper into Florida here. Here it is. You got that avenue in the central Florida of 60, 70 mile per hour wind gust. And then we get a little bit closer look at Tampa here. And just bear with me. This is the Euro. Okay, right in the Tampa Bay, 90 to maybe as much as 100 mile per hour wind gusts in some of these colors right here. And it's not as aggressive looking as the GFS, but I would actually buy the GFS on this instead. So closer look at that, and then we look at the HFA model. I want you to watch how the little tiny wind field begins to expand as this approaches the Florida coastline. Look how much it broadens at the worst possible time. So by the time we're getting into Wednesday afternoon, the HFA model is saying already, and this isn't an exact forecast because the HFA and B model is faster with this system, but it's already bringing 50 to 60, maybe even 70 mile per hour wind gusts into the Tampa Bay area, Bradenton, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, etc., Tampa. Okay, by the time we get into Wednesday evening, and guys, this could be backed up. You could back this up maybe 3 to 6 hours. But look at these wind gusts it has moving into Tampa. These are wind gusts. Okay, 100. It says basically anywhere from 100 to 125 mile per hour wind gusts going right into the bay right into Tampa Bay. And north and south of it. This would be terrible. I mean, absolutely horrible, horrific. It moves it right over the Tampa Bay area and then proceeds to have a retained eye wall and basically just causes significant damage along the communities along Highway 4 north and south of it, all the way potentially into Orlando. And look at these strong winds even north of Tampa as this continues to move inland throughout the night, Wednesday night, tomorrow night, you can say now. And I mean, even getting into, folks, I mean, we getting into Thursday morning, it wants to bring a significant, as the system's right here and the winds are going like this around it, this would bring a significant onshore flow into the northeast coastline of Florida. Daytona Beach up to Jacksonville could get blasted by Category 1 or 2 hurricane force winds if something like this is correct. I would say this is the worst case scenario for sure. And then the HFB shows the same thing, but the timing is a little off with those. So if we kind of look at this and we look at the HWRF model, say, and it looks like, no, we're good. So this is just going to show wind speeds. It's not going to show like gusts. So this is just consistent wind speeds. This moves it. The timeline is definitely slowed down here. It makes landfall, say, like the wee hours of the morning, Thursday morning. I mean, maybe even daybreak Thursday morning. And this would bring, I mean, and like I said, this is wind speeds, not gusts. But this would bring 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds, just consistent winds into the Bay Area. I mean, the gusts could be 100, 110 though. Unfortunately, on this run of the HWRF model on Weather Bell, they don't have a wind gust thing. But I mean, if you look really closely at this, you can see the wind streams going around this, bang, right into the Tampa Bay area. Okay? So, I mean, the Tampa Bay area is just getting just slammed. Okay? And this continues to move. Remember, this is just a little bit further north. So this would bring heavier impacts kind of close to, say, Ocala, Gainesville, and would bring a nasty onshore flow once this moves offshore on Thursday afternoon into sections of the northeast coastline of Florida and the coastline of Georgia. I mean, look at this. I'm telling you, this is kind of a story you're not hearing about maybe as much, but this could cause some issues right in here. All right, so if you live in the beach areas of these areas, I'm telling you, take this serious. It'll be a kind of, this thing will be pulling out fast, but I think we definitely need to be concerned up there too. Now, this is the latest National Weather Service forecast, which is, it just continues to tick this south. So has the core of this system, and let's actually go back and look at this, I think, and they've actually decreased the winds here, but this just looks, I don't know, better for the eye here. Let's just kind of go back and look at that. So this is the latest data. So I'm going like, dude, what are you doing? But this brings the core of the winds right through the central peninsula of Florida. Okay, if we take a closer look and look at, say, Tampa, this is the National Weather Service forecast too. This is wind gust. If you look in this color right here, these are winds approaching, I mean, folks, this is winds approaching over 120 miles per hour plus in wind gust. So if you're wondering why is it in these weird little circles, well, this is in 1 hour increments. So, you know, it doesn't have a full kind of pull through of it. It's just in 1 hour sections here. So that's why it looks like that in these weird circles. But this flat out brings over 100 mile per hour wind gusts right into the Tampa Bay area, and everybody's surrounded in the Tampa area. And then it goes right up Interstate 4, Lakeland, Orlando, right up to Daytona Beach, folks. Right between Daytona Beach and Melbourne, it wants to bring the worst winds. So you can see there's still some disagreement with model guidance, right? Definitely is with these winds and just going over model guidance. Some have it north of Tampa, some have it go right through Tampa. There isn't a whole lot that goes well south of Tampa, though. So that's why I'm still kind of confused about the ticks south. I don't know. I'll leave it at that. But the storm surge forecast, let's see if we have a new one. We don't. Still calling for 10 to 15 feet of storm surge into the Tampa Bay area. Okay, 6 to 10 feet down here between Charlotte Harbor and Bonita Beach. And then, of course, it decreases to the south. But I'm telling you guys, you know, they're calling for 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, folks. You know, along the coastline of northeast Florida and into southeast coastline of Georgia. So the storm surge is a huge deal, folks, especially if this thing goes where it looks like it's going. And, you know, this is a graphic from the National Weather Service in Tampa. I'll let you read it, you know. But, you know, it does discuss some of these areas right here. If you live near rivers, creeks, or canals, be prepared to evacuate from rapidly rising water. And, you know, it circles a couple areas right here. A lot of people don't realize this about hurricanes. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was talking to Gerald, actually, who I chased with, we chased Helene. There is an extremely slow buildup with hurricanes. Meaning, you know, a lot of people think that once kind of the edge of the hurricane hits, I mean, it's full send ahead. That is not true. You really got to get into the core of the system, the actual eye wall, before things hit the fan, before things just get crazy. And you say, okay, well, this is the hurricane. And it happens so fast, guys. I mean, it's just like so much just like that. I've been in a few hurricanes. I've seen it. People who've been in the eye wall of a hurricane know about it. And, you know, Tampa, if you're choosing not to evacuate, you're thinking, man, I'm glad I didn't. This is not that bad. And then the eye wall hits. The water comes up so fast, guys. I mean, you don't even realize it's happening, and it is. So just keep that in mind. But we do have some information from the Recon. Let's see what kind of info we have. We might not have enough. So they actually it looks like they just passed through the system, and it's actually a 932. So the first pass shows that millibar-wise that this is weakened, actually. So, you know, if you go back and look at this had it a 924. So it actually looks like it's maybe weakened a little bit based off the millibar. So we'll see what happens here. Winds are still very strong and tight around this core here. But the first pass was a 932. They're going to go through another pass and see if it's lower. And it very well could be. But I did want to try to get some data here. It doesn't look like this thing is strengthened by any means. But that could change. They could go through it again and it might be 918 or something. So let's talk about what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 today. So the good news here. Don't want to come on here and just give you bad news. The numbers you're seeing on your screen, those are temperatures, not dew points. This is a cold front, guys. This thing has swept through the country. It just moved through my house. I live in central South Carolina a few hours ago. You can tell the difference. Dry air is moving in. And we have some, we got temperatures in the 40s down in the Mississippi. It's just nice fall-like. You're waking up and probably going to Starbucks and get you a pumpkin spice latte or something. I'm just kidding. Maybe you are. I talk about that, but I don't think I've ever had a pumpkin spice latte ever. So I'm typically just a vanilla type guy. But anyways, enough of all that. A wonderful air mass is sweeping across the country. And this is actually saving a good portion of the inland areas from, if you're wondering and still just think that this storm system, Milton, is just going to come inland despite what anybody says, it can't because of this cold front. This thing is forcing this to stay in Florida, so that's the driver. But definitely a wonderful air mass out here. Watches, warnings, and advisories. The only area is Florida, folks. We've already talked about it, just littered with tropical alerts. Everybody else, besides a couple heat alerts and some red flag warnings, pretty quiet out here. And the same thing with the excessive rainfall outlook. It's not that bad today. Almost the entire peninsula of Florida has a slight risk, which means we have at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. But today won't be that bad. It's once we get into tomorrow. And then the risk of severe weather. The tornado risk does increase today from these outer bands that start to kind of ooze into the peninsula of Florida. But outside of that, we actually could get some convection off Lake Ontario because of the cool air surging over the relatively still warm body of water of the Great Lakes. This is how we get lake effect snow, but of course not near cold enough to get lake effect snow yet. But outside of that, severe weather is not a big deal unless you live in Florida, and we'll talk about that here. As far as the southeast, it's dry. The only state that will see rain today pretty much, besides some isolated downpours maybe in Georgia, is the state of Florida. We'll continue to get a lot of rain. As you can tell, here comes Milton creeping up on your screen, which, by the way, don't look at the HER model as far as tropical. As far as looking at the tropics, guys, it does not do well. But a closer look at South Florida, these outer bands will start to move in. I don't even know if you would call them outer bands. It's just kind of feeder bands into Florida here. But any of these banding features right here could pop off a tornado warning or two. You're going to have a flooding risk too. But this will just continue to saturate the peninsula of Florida well ahead of the actual tropical system. And we could be waking up even tomorrow morning to some tornado warnings in southwest Florida. So just be aware today. Just take any tornado warning serious in Florida today. They could happen and spin up fast. Up here in the northeast, some convective downpours are possible. Maybe even some small hail with them. And western New York off the lakes, this happens. We could even just get a flat-out strong or severe storm up here in New York State today. We're going to get some thunderstorms, so don't let these catch you by surprise or anything like that. This energy will push through, and then we're going to wake up tomorrow morning to even a cooler morning. And, we're starting to see some blue show up here in Quebec and Ontario. So I'll tell you one thing, man. After Milton, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be done. But, man, I'll be happy just to get a break. I'm ready to talk about snow, winter weather. I'm very excited about that. I know I got a lot of viewers I got some viewers that don't even watch me until it's winter, and I don't blame them, I'm ready to talk about winter weather too. But the south central U.S., it continues to be a very quiet streak of weather. I don't think anything significant has happened in the south central U.S. since like Beryl. It's just been very quiet, and will continue to be quiet today. North central U.S. is quiet also. Look at the blue on the corner of your map up there, up in Canada. Love it. Love to see it. But nothing's going on over the next 24 hours in the north central U.S. The western U.S., quiet also. A little bit of shower activity in the Seattle area. Maybe a little shower activity gets going across the central Rockies. But, man, it's quiet out here too. Temperatures, beautiful fall-like air mass, quite chilly. Not quite chilly. It's pretty chilly up here in New England. 50s, maybe even just 40s. Pretty nice for the big cities along the I-95 corridor. Pleasant weather even to the southeast. Highs won't get out the 70s and 60s in a lot of these areas. It's definitely starting to get fully entrenched in the fall up here in the upper Midwest and the UP of Michigan. And it's definitely warmer out west for sure. It's warm. It's in the low 80s all the way up into the high plains. And it's hot again into the southwest. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.